Welcome on back in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. This is our Gold Coast Suns 2024 review episode. We're going to have a look at how the Suns went this year. Look at their matches, look at their stats, look at some of their players. What went right, what went wrong, what do we expect from them in 2025? Thanks for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments below what you expect from the Gold Coast Suns in 2025. Will they finally play finals football, or are they set for another year of nothingness, really? Let me know. Also, don't forget that the podcast goes live on YouTube and Spotify twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, reviewing, previewing all the AFL, all the WAFL action. So go check them out as well. Plenty of social media content as well. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and Twitter. Go check them all out, folks. Next up, let's just jump straight into it. Gold Coast Suns 2024 review. We've been going through all the clubs from bottom of the ladder, working our way up. We're up to the Suns. They finished 13th on the ladder. 11 wins, 12 losses, and 0 draws. A season that promised a little bit, but delivered not much of it. Looking at their game by game of their season, started really well, 39-point win over Richmond. Obviously, Richmond turned out to not be so good this year, so it doesn't look that great in hindsight. But Richmond, while not having high hopes this year, certainly had hopes of not being wooden spooners. Adelaide in round one, they also managed to get up over, but once again, Adelaide have not been great this year either. So it doesn't look that great looking back at those two wins now. They then had Bulldogs at Mars in Ballarat and got pumped quite comfortably. First quarter got smacked and just never really recovered from that point. They then had their bye because they obviously had that opening round match. They came back for gather round over in South Australia. Played the Giants, they are the Suns, and lost by 28 points. Went back home, beat Hawthorn comfortably by 53. Then got smacked by Sydney. Beat West Coast comfortably up on the Gold Coast. Then got beaten by 34 points to the Brisbane Lions, who were very undermanned that day. But still, they couldn't beat them. So that was a bad loss. They followed it up with two really good wins up in Darwin. Maybe they should just play all their home games at Darwin because they were incredibly good in those two. First up, 68-point win over North Melbourne, and then in a really high-scoring game the next week, they beat Geelong by 64 points. So at this point, they're looking okay. They've already racked up, 6 wins, 4 losses through 10 games. Certainly looking like they have a possibility of playing finals, but they lose 3 of their next 4. They lost to Carlton, St Kilda and Fremantle in that run. They beat Essendon up on the Gold Coast, and they had the bye in there as well. They then got a good win against Collingwood up on the Gold Coast, but followed it up the next week with a really bad loss to North Melbourne at Marvel. They then beat Port Adelaide in a really good win up on the Gold Coast, which is a growing theme, before, at this point, their season's still a chance. There's, 6 games to go. They probably need to win 4 of them to make finals from this point, and they don't manage that. They lost to GWS comfortably, lost to Brisbane reasonably comfortably, then went over to the West and lost to West Coast. Before beating Essendon at Marvel, getting absolutely pumped by Melbourne up on the Gold Coast, and then finished the season with a win over Richmond. So fell a couple games short of finals in the end. It's a weird sort of season. If you look just up to the end of round 19, all their wins had been home games for them, and all their losses had been away games for them, including the loss of the gather round, which was obviously a neutral game. So up to that point, it was a really weird stat line. We did a video on it about 6-8 weeks ago about how weird their season had been, that they were dominating at home and just couldn't perform on the road. That changed a little bit for the negative first and then the positive later. in terms of changing that up, because they lost their last 2 home games against Brisbane and Melbourne, and they managed to win their last 2 away games, which was Essendon and Richmond. So a weird way to finish their season, I guess, after being dominant at home and not good away. They turned it around in that last 2 games, but or last 4 games, 2 of each. But yeah, that's their season. It wasn't great for them, but it wasn't terrible. Could have been better. If we look at their 3-year trajectory, so 2022 they had 10 wins, finished 12th on the ladder. Pretty solid season. 2023 they dropped off a little bit, only 9 wins from the extra game as well, obviously. Finished 15th on the ladder. This year, 11 wins. Somehow, oh no, that's right, yeah, 11 wins. Sorry, I got confused by something completely then, but something completely irrelevant. So 11 wins is pretty much on pace with their 2020 year, really. Percentage-wise, very sort of similar. Finished 13th instead of 12th. But you look at their age profile, it's much the same as it was 2022. Their experience has slightly gone up, but not by much. So maybe it's not that bad that they missed finals. They're probably still looking for that experience and that just little point that puts them over the hump of being 11th, 12th, 13th, and up to the top 8. Will we see it? Who knows? But once again, used quite a lot of players. AFL average is 39, so 40 in 22, 23, and then 38 this year. So slightly under average, but still quite a lot, especially compared to a team like Melbourne, who I think had 34 or so, 36 maybe, but you get the drift. But look at all the different stats. This is a lot of stats, I get it, but it's just some interesting things. We don't go fully into it all, but we just have a little glimpse over it and see what's gone wrong. First, points for against hasn't changed much from 2022. It dropped off in 2023. They had a bad year last year, but got back to similar-ish numbers. Slightly down, but not too bad. Disposal numbers have got better each year. So 2022, they weren't getting that much of the football, whereas now they're starting to bring that back towards an even keel. Their inside 50s in 2022 and 2024 were really good. 2023, as I've said, was a bad year for them. Their metres gained is a little bit concerning, giving up basically, it's not that much of the ground. It's 30% of the ground per game extra than their opposition. So it's something that they maybe need to get back on level terms with. Turnover game was pretty good this year, to be honest. They did pretty well in that regard. Getting more intercepts than turnovers, which is a good effort. Contested footy was okay, not outstanding. So, in fact, the worst they've done in it, contested football in the last 3 years. Uncontested football was certainly the best it's been, though. Hard ball gets was solid. Loose ball gets not so great. Clearance-wise, for a team that has some really good balls in that centre, they don't dominate clearances. As you can see, they're minus 0.5 per game, whereas the previous couple of years they've been pretty good, +1 in 2022 and just slightly over even in 2023. Their forward efficiency dropped off the radar this year. It was very, very low. Their defensive efficiency was very good this year, and has been getting better each year, but their forward efficiency just completely disappeared this year, so that's a little concern. Other than that, most things got slightly better, or certainly better than last year, and much more similar to where they were 2 years ago in 2022. So some positive signs there, but also they still have some work to do. They certainly won't want to be dropping back to the levels of 2022 this year. This is their score sources. As you can see, where they lost 5 points on last year from stoppages, which isn't great, but their defense also improved slightly in that area as well. But they did gain 10 points from turnovers, so that was a massive improvement for them. was probably the point that they lost the most from last year, from the year before. So they got all that back and a little bit extra from turnovers, which is good for them. Defensive half scores went up a bit, as did forward half, and their centre bounce did as well. So overall, their scoring certainly improved in most facets, but mainly the big improvement was in that turnover game, going plus 10 basically in offense and -3 in defense. Ends up being more than 2 goals a game improvement on last year in the turnover game. So a big positive there for the Gold Coast Suns. Now we'll have a look at some players. These are some players that missed quite a bit of action this year. So Sean Lemons missed 20 games, Lockie Weller 17, Alex Davies 16, Fiorini 11, Joel Jeffrey missed 11, Jared Witts missed 7, Will Graham 6, Ben Ainsworth 6, Took Miller 5, and Will Powell also missed 5. So a few big names there and quite a long list. I don't know if it's the most outstanding list of players of all time, but it certainly is. It's hard to win games when you've got injuries coming in and out constantly throughout the season. So there's that. Highest rated players by positions. We start at the key defence line. They had 3 solid key defenders, I guess, this year. Sam Collins, 13.39 AFL rating this year, was outstanding. Improved from his 10.1 last year, so he's definitely got better. I had him in my All AFL team, which is my take on the All Australian team. If you haven't checked that video out, went live on YouTube a week ago, so go check it out. Or it's also posted on my social media, so I think Instagram and Twitter for sure. So go check that out. Charlie Ballard, he dropped off a little bit on last year's performance, which is, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but you obviously always want to be improving, but that's okay. Mac Andrew showed some really good signs, especially early in the year. Second half of the year, they tried him out a few times up forward. He showed some really good signs up forward too. He had a really good game where he kicked the match winner against Essendon, and I think he kicked 4 that day. The week before, he was really good up forward as well. He had a couple games where he struggled a little bit, but I mean, he's a defender basically, but just learning the craft as a tall forward. It'll be interesting to see what they decide with him going forward, whether that role is in the back line or the forward line, but he's certainly shown some very exciting promise about what he could do at either end of the football field. The key forwards, Sam Day only played 5 games, and I mean, it was a lot better rating than last year, but he just doesn't play much football. And I think he played a bit of ruck in that too, so that boosted his rating up a bit. Ben King, 22 games. His rating doesn't look that good there. He wasn't terrible, to be honest. He kicked quite a few goals, but in the end, his accuracy really hurt him a fair bit this year. We move on to the medium defenders. They just have a lot of players that can play medium defence. As you can see, a lot of players missed games in this group. So Flanders played a lot. He got a lot of the football. His rating went up quite considerably. He was very good as a half-back flanker. A lot of uncontested football, but I mean, he was still very good at what he was doing. Will Powell, he was solid this year, maybe slightly down on last year. Joel Jeffrey improved. He was good. Bodie Uland, I think he was outstanding this year. He was a real improver. Lockie Weller was solid in the 6 games he played. Connor Butterick showed some good signs as well in limited opportunities. As I said, Sean Lemons didn't play much this year, but he did a role. And Alex Sexton, he was good as well across his 15 games. The medium-sized forwards, I mean, I know Jack Lukosius is actually quite tall. He's 195. Listed as a medium forward here. He does kind of play the key forward role as well at times, but and he also plays back. He's a bit of a swing man for Gold Coast. He played 21 games, slightly down on last year's performance. His best game of the year was the game against Geelong up in Darwin. I think he had 20-something touches, kicked 5 goals. He was outstanding that day. Ben Long, he was really good this year. He showed some really good signs as a third or fourth forward option. He was kicking some goals, some crucial goals, and he'll be looking to improve again on what he did this year. Lloyd Johnston was okay, better than probably last year. Ben Ainsworth was the reverse, dropped off a little bit. Then their midfielders, this is probably where they have the most talent, I'd say, in their lineup. Matt Rowell was outstanding again this year, probably even better than last year. Started with a bang in opening round and continued that on all through the year. 16.15 AFL rating is very high. Also, same can be said for Noah Anderson. Slightly down on last year, but 15.77 is still very, very good. Tuuk Miller, he missed 5 games, which hurt him a little bit, but his rating was very similar to last year, slightly up. Braden Fiorini showed some good signs in the 12 matches he played. Same can be said for Alex Davies. He only played 7 games, but he showed some good signs as well. And then the 2 people that weren't part of their team last year, Sam Closey and Will Graham. Closey especially was very good running up and down the wing. Will Graham was great as well. 17 games, almost a rating of 9 is very solid. They had 2 people that really play ruck outside of Sam Day, who pinch hits occasionally. Jared Witts played 16 games, was outstanding, much the same as he was last year. He's just a very good all-round ruckman. Without being one of the best in the league, he's certainly in that top 5 or 6. And Ned Moyle showed some really good signs, I think, this year. He only got 8 opportunities, pretty much always when Witts wasn't about, but he was really, really consistent, really good, and showed that as a young ruckman, he has the potential to take over that mantle in the next year or 2 as the number 1 ruckman up on the Gold Coast, which would be huge for them to have a young ruckman come in and really assert himself in that position. The last thing to look at here is the players that weren't there this year that were there last year. So we start with Chris Burgess. It didn't show much last year. He went to Adelaide. Still wasn't anything to write home about, so no big loss there. Mabo Chao showed plenty of promise up on the Gold Coast. Went to Hawthorn this year. His rating's gone up. I mean, you can put that down to the fact that Hawthorn were really good this year. As a forward, especially a key forward, game's a lot easier when your team's doing well and winning games because the ball's going to be going your way a lot more often. But he certainly probably costly up forward, losing out on him this year. Elijah Hollins went to Carlton and had an outstanding season, there's no doubt about it. His improvement was great. And then the one that I think hurts the most, if I'm being completely honest, is Jeremy Sharp. They delisted him after last year. Fremantle picked him up as a supplementary pick in the pre-season. He ended up playing all 23 games for the Dockers and rated 7.87 across the year. While not being incredibly great, those sort of numbers would be handy for Gold Coast, I would have thought. But one person's treasure is another person's rubbish, I guess. I think it goes the other way around, but you know what I mean. Like, one person's trash is another person's treasure is what I was looking for. Don't know why I couldn't say it. But yeah, that one's a disappointing one because I reckon he could have really helped this Gold Coast team if they hadn't have delisted him. But that's hindsight, I guess, really, isn't it? I'm sure they had their reasons. So that's Gold Coast Suns this year. Not a fantastic year, in all honesty. Every time that they don't make finals is basically another failed season. In all honesty, they've been in the AFL for like 14 years now or whatever it is, and yet to play finals football. They show signs every year that they're there or thereabouts. Certainly in the last 10 years they've done it multiple times, and they just can't break that next point to get themselves into finals. So it's a concern. Will they get there next year? I'm not convinced. It's going to depend a lot on what they bring in over the off season and also what they lose. Chance that they lose Lukosius. But there's a couple players looking to join them. namely John Noble, I think, and Daniel Rioli. But their medium defence line is probably, outside of their midfielders, their next strongest position. So to bring those two in would be an interesting choice. Maybe they look at trading out one or two of those medium defenders that they currently have. Otherwise, they'll have to start looking at different positions for some of them. Whether that's moving them on the wings, but they've got some good wing talent already, or half-forward flank and try and convert them into goal scorers, I guess. But that's up to Damien Hardwick and his coaching staff to work out. I don't think they play finals next year based on what we've seen this year. They've shown plenty of signs that they're good enough. I just think they're just lacking that extra bit of polish, certainly up forward, also down back. They have the nucleus, I think. They just don't have the parts around it. But that's what I think of Gold Coast. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Are they going to play finals 2025? I have them finishing probably a similar spot to this year, in all honesty. Don't forget to like, comment, as I said, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. This has been All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. Catch us on the next one.